Let it Let it Let it Let it Let it
Welcome, family. We're testing things out here to see if we have all the sound on all the social media platforms. So I hope that you all are able to hear me. YouTube, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Not feeling that well. My throat is hurting so badly. Thank you on Facebook, Gwen Molden. Good evening, Emmanuel. I can hear you beautifully on YouTube. Okay, I'm going to do one more button and tell me if you can still hear us, please. Okay. Can you still hear me? Gwen Molden, Pastor D, Cora, because y'all are on different pages. Let me know if you can still hear me. I just tried to mute Instagram so I don't have to hear it in the echo. You can hear me, Corindus, on Facebook. Gwen Molden on Facebook. Sound is great. And Pastor D and Darlene is on YouTube and can hear me. Wow, beautiful. Awesome. I think we got it working tonight, Ebony. Well, good evening. Welcome to night 25. I am your Soul Detox host, Apostle Dr. Suzanne M. Howard, where we have been here for 30 days this month of January and every month going back 6 consecutive Januaries. And I'm so glad to see family with me tonight. I'm looking over on YouTube. Instagram. Let me give a shout out to those on Instagram. I see Devin Jenkins, Mishi, 1712. I like y'all names over here. I see Yolanda Dawson, 44. I see Irene Sika. Come on, baby. I love it. Pastor Michonne, God bless you. I'll be following you on here as well. And Swift Ties. Good to see y'all on with me tonight. So this is our 25th consecutive night. We call it Revival. But we're dealing with the soul. You know, that's my commission as an apostle, to deal with souls. And I've been doing this for 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, for 8 consecutive Januaries. right? 2016. No, I started in 2017. 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 7 consecutive January. People counted as 6 years, but it's been 7 Januaries that I've been doing this. So let's celebrate all of y'all who come on faithfully every year and help me to get this broadcast out so people can be aware of mental health in some of the most simplest forms. I am not your therapist. I am not here giving you definitive information that will apply to you. I'm giving you general information and hopefully to inspire you to go to a therapist, seek someone to talk to, a counselor, a recovery coach, a mental health coach, something to inspire you after learning something with me each night about yourself that will cause you to begin to walk into a greater depth and level and understanding of who you are as a human being. So I'm so glad to have you here with me tonight. Let me see. I think we all know that the books are in and they have been mailed for those that are getting them mailed. Everyone else, they are available. If you just contact us, they'll be in the Hartford office, and otherwise they'll be in the church building on Sunday, but you can make arrangements to pick them up before Sunday. And we're waiting for the journals because that's going to be our gift to all those who registered early. And I think we're on our way. How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Are we doing all right? Surviving or thriving? What are we doing? I've been in bed all day long. I hate to even bring that up. I woke up with the worst sore throat I've ever had. And I've been in bed all day long, just taking every prescription, well, I should say non-prescription prescription from everyone who said, try this method and try that method and try that. And I've just been taking everything, and my throat is all right for me to get this done tonight. So I'm thankful. I just hope I don't have to wake up like that tomorrow morning, because that was painful. I feel like razor blades were in my throat. Ugh, horrible. Surviving today. Aw, I see some saying thrive, some saying survive. Well, I'm glad you're here with me tonight and you didn't leave me all by myself. Thank you. It's 74 of us on tonight. We're not really up at our number, but we're going to keep going anyhow. We have made it up to chapter 5 in our study for this year, group therapy, as we're all together. And we're dealing with defense mechanisms, learning our coping mechanisms, the healthy, adaptive, and the not so healthy, maladaptive. And we're learning how to exchange poor coping mechanisms for healthier ones that will produce more in our lives, give us better relationships, which is where we landed at tonight. Last night and tonight, we started dealing with how defense mechanisms are hurting my relationships. How blessed were y'all by that on last night? Yes, Kevin. Kevin said to maintain my faith and my sanity. I touch and agree in the spirit with you. Yep. Yes, very good. And we're so glad to see Lydia on with us tonight. She went in and had some things taken care of, and she's on, not missing a beat with us. I was smiling today when her daughter said, my mom doesn't even give time for recovery. She's right in the house and hooked right back up to Soul Detox. That's what I'm talking about, Lydia, and we love to have you. We love to have you. We need relationship part 2. Yeah. Actually, let me give you a little secret if I haven't shared it yet. In February, that's known as the love month because of Valentine's Day being in February. So I'm going to do a lot of things on relationship in the month of February. Hi, Brandon. I'm going to do a lot of things in the month of February regarding relationship. I'm going to interview a couple other couples, some newlywed, some middle stage, and some that are in at a greater stage. And we're going to really talk about love and the soul and how things work out. And, how does God do that? And, that whole thing with us, and what do we believe is our part as those who believe in God, and, all that good stuff. We're going to have some good dialogue. But tonight we're dealing with how defense mechanisms are hurting my relationships. So I'll read this little spiel to you, and then we'll move up to the part where we ended up from last night. Healthy relationships are critical, and they're critical to a great life. Anybody want a great life? There are few joys that can compare to connection with others. In addition, who you choose to associate with can make or break your entire future. But having great relationships takes more than choosing the right people for your inner circle. It takes more than choosing. It's going to take some dedication on your part, and to know that those that you are considering relationship with, this is even for girlfriends and guy friends and romantic relationships, domestic and abroad, are they able to dedicate to that friendship? It's going to take humility on both sides. And it's going to take skill from each party to nurture the relationship so that the relationship can thrive and the individuals involved can also thrive individually. The hardest part of relationships is handling conflict, because conflict triggers your defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are those negative knee-jerk reactions that you have when somebody hurts you or confronts you. They are reflexes that you picked up somewhere along the way as a response to pain that you have experienced. These responses, hear me clearly, can destroy your relationship. These responses can destroy relationships because they drive a rift between you and the other party involved. Defense mechanisms kick in when we're afraid without even knowing it. And then they cause us to make a mess. As human beings, we all use defense mechanisms from time to time, whether we realize it or not. And this is fine until it starts getting in the way of your life and your relationships. These mechanisms, as they're also known, are something we use to comfort ourselves. Humans use defense mechanisms to protect themselves from all sorts of scary feelings, such as heartbreak, failure, vulnerability, and the like. However, sometimes these defense mechanisms hurt you more than they actually help you. Defense mechanisms often push others away, even if that's not what you intended. Any of those can experience or connect with what I'm saying now? When you are in a romantic relationship, it's a good idea to evaluate your defense mechanisms, because you're using them, and you're using most of them unconsciously. You're pushing people away, you're pushing your partner away without even knowing it. So what is advised for you to do to become more self-aware is take a step back. Look at your last interaction. Look at the last conflict that you had in the relationship. Has it been resolved yet? Is there a resolution of conflict going forward so that if the event or the issue or the assumed betrayal happens again, there is something in play to cope when there's a strain or a distrust on the relationship, versus a defense mechanism that will cause you to push people away. I want to bring you closer in your relationships, not to push you away. We learned on last night that being able to maintain reasonable relationships is a pretty necessary ingredient for a happy and functional life. Inasmuch as primary means of relating involves relationships. It's the basic need that we have for communion, affection, attention, companionship, conversation. Isn't that beautiful? Who doesn't want that, right? I know I do. We went through last night and we went through about 5 stages we talked about, maybe more like dynamics of defense mechanisms that can actually affect our romantic relationships. And I gave some general information that I want to talk a little bit more on the specifics tonight. So one of the generals of the 6 is you might withdraw from your partner when you're feeling anxious or threatened. Number 2, you might become overly dependent on your partner. Number 3, you might try to control your partner. Number 4, you become overly critical of your partner. I saw a lot of emojis with tears on the emoji's face last night. So I know that a lot of people were in a real truth state in the presence of this teaching. And number 5, you might shut down emotionally. So this is where we landed last night and where we will start tonight. Defense mechanisms that can hurt your relationships. When they get out of hand, defense mechanisms, when they go hand to hand, defense mechanisms can keep you safe, keeps you in a bubble, prevents you from facing emotional problems, but it also keeps you from advancing in your emotional life. Unfortunately, repressed emotions and feelings can show up, and they can show up and impact your well-being in all kinds of unpleasant ways. I didn't hear you. What? Oh, great. For example, I'm glad you asked. You may find it difficult to open up to potential partners or withdraw from your existing partner. You may also idealize your partner and get sorely disappointed when they don't turn out to match your fantasy. You can be in denial of negative occurrences and behaviors, letting them harm you indefinitely and making it harder to break away from unhealthy relationship dynamics. The list goes on. Your unconscious defense mechanisms can damage your romantic relationships in many ways, especially if you remain unaware of them. This is why it's a good idea to learn about common survival strategies and see which ones apply to you. All right, my mic dropper is in. It is official So Detox time. Karen Jameson is dropping the mic already. So this is what I want you to type in your chat, and I'm going to go ahead and take you into our group therapy session together where we are recovering from unhealthy coping and defense mechanisms. And this is what I want you to put in the chat. Common survival strategies. Common survival strategies, because that's what we're going to talk about now. As soon as I see one person have it in the chat, we'll move on. Thank you, Kamisha. Number 1, projection. Earlier in the teaching, the prior 24 days, we talked about all of these, and again, in general definitions. But now I've been taking them and going deeper, explaining how they affect your mental and emotional well-being. Last week, this week, I'm using the same defense mechanisms, but I'm using them in specific areas now. And tonight is how it affects our relationships. So some of our common survival strategies is projection. Projection can damage intimate relationships, often requiring partners to visit private couple retreats for a reconnection. Projection may work differently for each person. Nevertheless, there are some general examples you may have across in your life. Projection. I'm going to give you 4 statements on projection. Number 1, a cheating partner. A cheating partner. Come on, write it in the screen. 92 of y'all in here tonight. God bless you and thank you. A cheating partner. A cheating partner who uses projection suspects that the other person, that their partner in the relationship is being unfaithful. So they begin to project their insecurities, their guilt, their shame, their own infidelity. They begin to project it on to their partner. And by doing that, they are transferring their own behaviors and shame through projection onto someone else. God made us so uniquely and wonderfully that we literally were not made to stress and lie and cheat. And that's why all of these behaviors can irregulate our blood pressure. They can cause different chemical responses and reactions in our body. So when someone is cheating, usually they are the one to accuse someone else of cheating, because the guilt begins to, as we say, eat them alive. The shame is too much to bear. So in order for them to lift off in shame, which is invisible, right? Can we agree that shame is invisible? Because it's invisible, it's not something they could just take off and throw in the corner and say, oh, I don't want to wear that shame. Instead, what they do, they take it off invisibly and they put it on you. Oh, why didn't you answer your phone during lunch today? Were you at lunch with that new guy that started? Oh, why didn't you answer me at lunch today? Were you hanging around at the receptionist desk again? The pretty new young girl? They start projecting it. And you're looking like, I shared with you that there's a nice young guy that started in the company, and, maybe he smells good and maybe he looks good. And, he's a young guy and he's encouraging. And I shared that with you because more than likely who we're cheating with, we're not going to talk about with you. But a cheating spouse is so full of guilt and shame and weighted down with the burden of their offenses, their infidelity, that in order to get a break from it, it's suffocating. In order to get a break from it, they project it onto you. So take this guilt. Feel bad for not coming home after work. Feel bad for going to the gym when I was home tonight. I want you to feel bad for hanging out with your girlfriends and I'm calling you 4 and 5 and 6 times because I have to project what I do when I'm not around or when I'm out with my friends onto you because it's too much for me to carry alone. Yeah, it's too much. So it's a projection. And if it was armor, if it was a mantle, if it was a coat, they would probably try to take it off and hang it on a coat rack. But you, in a sense, become the coat rack that they hang their guilt on, their shame on, the burden of the infidelity, which is amazing because in a relationship, when one spouse is cheating, when one partner is cheating, they carry so much of the weight of it. They need to share it. And who else are they going to share it with but you? And sometimes they can become so thoroughly convinced in their own mind through their own guilt and infidelity that you literally are cheating on them. And sometimes they need to convince themselves that you're cheating on them so they can project the weight because the weight is just too much to carry. Projection. Anybody know about that kind of projecting? Did you do it when you used to be a player? Yeah, it's a weight and it's a burden. It's one that we've talked about before. The weights and burdens that so easy besets us. Projection. There's another one. You interrupt a person who talks too much and they accuse you of being a poor listener or a conversationalist, another form of projection. When the other person always gets a chance to talk, and then you interrupt them and they accuse you of being a poor listener, not listening to them, not paying attention to them, accusing you of being a conversationalist because you interrupted them. When in some cases we need to interrupt because I'm not getting something right here and I need to make a commentary, but you want to go on and on and on and on, then I can't remember any of my thoughts regarding your conversation. So in the end, was it for you to get me to actually listen, or did you just want me to hear? Because there's a difference. I want to respond intellectually. I want to respond as a good listener. I want to respond as someone who has questions or comments along the way. But a projector will always accuse you of not listening to them. Number 3, when you strongly dislike someone, but you convince yourself that they are the ones that don't like you. Come on. You strongly dislike someone and you know it. Who are you? Who am I talking to? But you have to convince yourself that they are the ones that doesn't like you. That just happened to me the other day. Yeah. I remember some years ago, and it really hurt me for a long time, quite a few years, because I don't let everyone in relationship wise. There could be a lot of people around me, but you would be surprised to know how many of them I consider to be in a relationship with. There's associates. I don't want to call them fans, but there's people who just hang around. And then there's those that actually give you the mutual space to grow and learn with them. And they actually form relationships. But a lot of people, you'll be surprised, even if you go back a page and what we're talking about, where people, they're not humble enough. They're not ready to help you benefit from the relationship. So there's a lot of people that you may be around, but not everyone is actually in relationship with you. There's a big difference. So I remember it just seemed like there was some friction, some kind of competition going on. And I don't think it was on my part, because I pretty much know my lane and I'm not looking for anything bigger than what God has promised me. If God has promised it to me, then there's no competition with anyone else. If he hasn't promised it and I'm trying to go in the back door and get it, well, of course I've got to get competitive in some things. And this particular person was having an issue with me. And what they were having an issue with was coming from another person. And it bothered me because what they were asking me, I'm like, I don't even talk like that. Like those are not even words that I use. Like, are you quoting them on how they quoted me, or are you turning this around in your language now, in your verbiage? Because that's not even a word I would use. And the person kind of stopped in their tracks, and they was almost like, you're right, you don't talk like that. I said, I don't talk like that. I don't even make statements like that. Like, never. I'm not even thinking like that. And after a while, I had to come to realize that this person, for some reason, needed to believe that I had a problem with them, because I believe today they were competing with me. And I wasn't in a competitive zone anywhere with them at all. I was really looking for friendship, honestly. And because they were seeing me as a competitor instead of a brother and sister in Christ, what people were saying, they were kind of buying into it. And then I realized after some time went and I got my emotions out of the way and I was able to think logically about the situation. And I had even said to them, why are you even believing this? Like, usually the first thing we would do is not believe something, right? That someone is saying with no fact, no evidence. But you were so quick to buy into like 3 statements. And I'm kind of trying to figure out how you're even buying into that with what we had. And then it came to me when the emotions settled and the dust settled and my feelings stopped being hurt. and the spirit of confusion was lifted off, that I realized that this person was looking for things to believe about me because the spirit of competition had entered into our relationship. And because the spirit of competition had entered into the relationship, they needed to feed their ego with some projection of how they believed I was feeling or thinking about them. And to this day, in front of the Holy Spirit of God, they are so completely off and wrong. And the people that was talking to them was used by a demon. Straight up. Pastor Yashika said she's been there. Yeah, and it hurt. And I think it's still hurting me a little bit. That's why it's still kind of coming up in my memory to even rehearse again tonight. Especially in ministry, pastors, and I know even just having a faith, believing in a faith, our circle gets smaller, trying to find, that tribe, that community. And with pastors, that's like an inner circle within a circle. And it's so hard to find people that we can trust. And it's amazing that degree of relationship with Christ, if you will, that we still can't find people that we can just let our guards down with, just hang around with without a competitiveness or jealousy or insecurity to flare up. I guess that's why I'm here, right? Doing Soul Detox. But it's so hard to just find people within your own community that can just be them while you be you, and it can all work out together. Someone said it's tiring. But I couldn't understand. And I even confronted the person on this. I said, why are you even believing this? Like, I was bewildered because I've been kind of like defamed by people where they have used conversations that I've had with them and they twisted it to manipulate someone else because they want to get that person on their side of agreement or whatever. So they actually used statements that I said. They just manipulated the statements. And then I was like, well, I did say that, or that does sound like me. But I wasn't using it in that context. This person didn't even sound like anything I said. And I said to what I thought was my friend then, this doesn't even sound like me, dude. I don't talk like this. This isn't even a language that I use. Come on. But anyway, the friendship disintegrated, unfortunately. But I had to learn later on by being ministered to by the Holy Spirit that there was projection of what was going on inside of them that they projected on me. And it hurt. And it hurt the relationship. It hurt me, but honestly, I'm a big girl, I missed the relationship more than it actually hurt me because there was a good thing going, and competitiveness got in, and the enemy just set up his little pawns to work the rest of it, and it changed the dynamics of the relationship because now who wants to be caught up in something like that? Can it happen again? Will it happen again? We'd have to have a real talk, and we'd have to have real boundaries to protect that. But the beat goes on, and, pastors and Christians alike, we end up just getting smaller and smaller in our community, probably just hanging with our family alone because of things like this. And while we are so busy competing, and I don't know how we can compete ministry-wise, but while we are so busy competing with each other, no one's getting the work done. Yeah. So that's interrupting the person who talks too much and then accuse them of being a poor listener. And I just gave another spin to that. The third one I said was you strongly dislike someone and you convince yourself that they are the ones who don't like you. That was the example that I gave. And then the last one I want to give on projection. You are able to complete a task successfully and believe that everyone else can do it too. Projection. Did you hear from that angle? Now that's a different angle. When you are able to complete a task successfully and you believe that everyone else should be able as well. No empathy, no discussion. And this is actually in a smaller capacity, a very good definition for self-righteousness. If you want to know if you're a self-righteous person, one of the signs of being a self-righteous person is when you're able to do something or overcome something or not be trapped by something, and you don't understand why other people cannot be like you. You're a self-righteous person. This is what I teach in my elders training. If you've been a minister for a long time, you should consider going for eldership. The training is worth it. You're with people who are at the same level as you. You're being taught directly by me, and you're given some material to actually have and to read to help, your thinking going and keep the elder training broadened, but instead of just one long meeting a month. But it's when you think that someone else should be able to do everything you do because you've never been addicted to anything. You think everyone else shouldn't be addicted to things. You think because you scored A's or because you have degrees, everyone else should have A's and everyone else should have degrees. And you just have a problem with people who can't succeed in the ways that you succeed. That's a self-righteous person. So I'll read it again. Number 4 said, you are able to complete a task successfully and believe that everyone else can do it too. And while I sat with my training elders, everyone had to find an area where they were self-righteous. And we all have it. We all have it. And there was some that was saying, when people can't hear from God, I don't understand why people can't hear from God. And we found self-righteousness in that one. I'm trying to think what mine was at the time. But we all had to find areas where we were self-righteous, where because I didn't go through it, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't a weakness for me. I didn't have to walk in those shoes. And because you do, I don't have any understanding of that. Self-righteous. So in this particular instance, when you can complete something, accomplish something, and you believe everyone else can too, you are projecting your own level of giftings and skills, maybe high-mindedness on everyone else. Deep, right? Well, I came from the same family as my sisters, and I don't know why they all jacked up. Self-righteous. Everyone can come through. Many people can come through the same event, trauma, situation, circumstance, and 5 people can come through it and have 5 to 6 different responses to it. We're self-righteous when we think everyone should be like self. So as you can probably tell by now, projection can manifest itself in an endless variety of ways. Essentially, it involves instances where people accuse others of their own, often maladaptive tendencies and behaviors. Projection involves instances where we accuse others of our own tendencies and behaviors. You're projecting on me. So what is projection in a relationship? I am so glad you asked tonight. This is a wonderful session, by the way. What is projection in a relationship? Projection most commonly occurs in romantic relationships where each partner may, in a way, borrow their partner's identity or attribute their own traits to them. Ooh. Unfortunately, it is quite common for people to project everything they don't like about themselves onto their partner. Onto their partner. Let me read that again. It is quite common for people in relationships to project everything that they don't like about themselves onto their partner. Pastor Kareem says, the woman you gave me. This can prevent the relationship from progressing, as well as stump your own psychological growth. One unfortunate effect of projection is that it may make you feel like a victim of life. It can make you feel like a victim of life. You may feel like everything bad that happens to you is your partner's fault. I'm so glad we had this time together just to laugh and sing a song. I'm done. Good night. How many counseling sessions has this occurred in? Shall I read it again? You may feel like everything bad that happens to you is your partner's fault, or your parents may be to blame. This can encourage you to repeat maladaptive behaviors and damage your relationship. Furthermore, it may impede your self-development and your capability for building a genuine connection with your partner. Displacing your negative thoughts and emotions, which can sometimes do irreparable damage to your relationship, especially if you don't make an effort to detect your own projections. Take a moment. You don't have to put it on the chat or the screen, but if you have your journal or if you have your book out, I want you to go ahead and write in there briefly some of your own projections that came up by me triggering some thoughts. If you want, and you're in that place of vulnerability tonight and you want to type it on the screen, go for it. But I definitely want to make sure you write it down before this night is over with, so you are aware through the triggering in this conversation, not the unhealthy triggering, but the triggering of thought, some areas where you could possibly be projecting at in your life. In your ministry, in your business, how about in relationship with your own children? You want to build genuine connections. You don't want to rift in between. So we spent the great amount of this time together learning about defense mechanisms so we can begin to recognize where they have been in our lives. We spent a short amount of time finding where they could have possibly come from. That you're going to need one-on-one, either in therapy or with a life coach. And so now what we're doing now is we're trying to get you to see how they play out in different parts of your life. Because they're doing irreparable damage. So what causes psychological projection? What causes psychological projection? Like many other defense mechanisms, such as reaction formation. If you get my book on self-awareness, my book on self-esteem, I talk greatly about reaction formation. And the repression of unwanted memories, projection boils down to this: self-defense. Projection boils down to self-defense. You may project because you are unable to acknowledge a negative quality or painful thought. It is often easier to displace difficult emotions to others than it is to take responsibility for your own actions and confront the aspects of your personality that you don't like. Take a moment now, on the chat if you want, but most definitely in your journal or your book. And I want you to begin to write down aspects of your personality that you have been aware of now, these 25 days. You have become aware of some things about yourself you don't like. You know, sadly, some of them you may like, but maybe it's time that you admit that they're not producing the result for you that you really wanted. The manipulation is not getting from him or her what you really want. The control isn't really getting what you want. The defense mechanisms that stop you from asking for what you want, expressing your needs to the individual. There's some things about your personality that at this point you should know they're just, maybe I like it. Maybe it gives me this power, this control, this power, this authority in some pseudo way, but it's not producing for me what I want out of the person I'm choosing to be with. What are some of those things at this point that you know are there and you should be writing them down? By projecting, you try to keep pain, shame, and guilt at bay. That's why we talked about the cheater, the offender, who has to take off the weight of the guilt and the shame and put it on their spouse and accuse their spouse. Always calling their spouse when the spouse is out, because the guilt and the shame of what they're doing, they're not made to carry that. So by projecting, you try to keep pain and shame and guilt at bay. It is also more comfortable for people to see negative qualities in other people than it is in themselves. Did y'all hear that? It is also easier for people to see negative qualities in other people than in themselves. The people who are prone to projecting often don't understand themselves very well. Let's put that in the chat. Definitely put it in your notebook if you can't put it in the chat. Yes, Cecilia, that is so true. People who project don't understand themselves. That's a powerful statement right there. Even though they believe they do. Low self-esteem and feelings of inferiority may also cause you to project your negative thoughts and behaviors onto others. And when there are leaders that project, their sermons are often built only around what goes around in their church. They're not bringing in national or global information pertaining to the Word of God that's not built on a storefront. It's built on a kingdom. It's much bigger than the interpersonal conflicts of one small satellite office from heaven. You understand that? So people who project don't understand themselves, even though they might believe they do. And the big cause to this is low self-esteem and feelings of inferiority. If you are struggling to spot symptoms of projection in yourself and still feel as if your partner or friend gets under your skin way too much, you can try asking yourself the following questions. Are you ready? You can try asking yourself the following questions. What experience from my past is triggered by this experience? What experience from my past is triggered by this experience? For y'all who stayed Tuesday night with me after we ended the live session and we stayed in the building together and I worked through, I believe it was with 2 people live in front of everyone, we were actually able to see that an experience that they shared in our after live session actually was triggered by an experience from their past. So an email made them blow up because it went back to something mom said years ago. A relationship issue that cannot get settled because it goes back to family dynamics. So a lot of what we are dealing with today is really just a triggered experience from something unresolved and solved from our past. What do I feel when speaking with or thinking about this person? If you're struggling to spot symptoms of projection in yourself and you feel like your partner or your friend gets under your skin too much, you can try asking yourself the following questions. The second one said, what do I feel when speaking with or thinking about this person? What about this person triggers me? What am I saying and thinking about this person? Only you know who that person is, or that thing, or that situation, or that event. Am I reactive in this situation, and why? What does this situation remind me of? I'm reading y'all comments, some good stuff up here. What does this remind me of? Is it another situation or another person? How am I like this person? In what ways am I different? It was funny because I got on my husband's nerves. What day was that this week? Monday? He doesn't want me to pull him in or include him. I'm hoping one night you sit over here with me. You're sticking with the lights, but yeah. And he came in and he thought he was going to get me to laugh, but I didn't give in, y'all. I held on. I was stronger than that. And he said to me, "You know what, Suzanne? You just like me." Do you remember that? Yeah. He said, "You're just like me." So he began to realize in that particular situation that we weren't different. We were pretty similar in how we were responding to a situation. How am I like this person? And in what ways are we different? Is it possible that other people see me this way too? And why do I fear that? Why do I fear blame? Why do we fear taking responsibility? Why do we fear accountability? What does it mean if you are like someone that you really have an issue with? What is it about them that you don't like that is reflective of you? This goes hand in hand. I can think in my mind right now of a lot of sessions with clients where a few people are like, "I don't want to be like her. I don't want to be like her." And they're talking about their mother. And they have this issue with their mom. And this is a good reflective for you to focus on is, how are you like your mom? In what ways are you different? And why do you fear that? What part of your mom is it that you fear? I know one young lady told me a while ago that her mom, her dad always made it like the mom just said stupid things. So her mom was kind of like the laughing person whenever there was family get-togethers. And it bothered her that her mom let her make them be the laughing stock of the family get-togethers. So she strived to be educated and smart and kind of nasty in family settings because she didn't like that her father made her mom look like she wasn't smart, and her mom would laugh it off and passively take it. And she said to me one day, "I don't want to be anything like her. And I'm so afraid I'm going to be so like her." And then she started saying, "And now my daughter is starting to be just like me. I see some of these ways of myself in my daughter." And it's a fear that came on that she didn't want to be the laughing stock or appeared as being dumb or not so smart. And she feared that. And she had an issue with her mom and didn't realize it. She had an issue in her heart against her mom because her mom never stood up for herself. Yeah, why did you fear that? What can you do to feel better about it? Are there any healthy boundaries that you can set up with the situation or the person? And how can I be more compassionate? Yeah, that's good. I like what you're writing, Chevelle. I like what you're writing, Cecilia. Yeah, Dolores Davis. I like your comments. Yes, Carol, very good. Come on, y'all. Get it out. Yep, very good, Carmen. Very good. Very good, Edith. Vanessa is questioning the question within herself. Excellent. I'm going to start this one because, this time next Wednesday, we'll be off the air. Did y'all know that? Next Tuesday, our 30 days is done. But if y'all keep me accountable, we'll keep the flow going every month and maybe 2 days a week. But you got to keep me accountable because I run a ministry, I do counseling, so things get a little hectic. But it's actually an outlet. I enjoy coming on here and being natural and just in my what do you call it? Just in my zone, in my raw form. I enjoy this. This is kind of like a vent for me. So y'all gonna have to keep me up. But I want to touch this last one tonight. We've got about 4 minutes left before an hour is up. And I want to touch this one tonight so that we can make sure we're moving ahead pretty well. Because this one's deep. This one you may benefit from with some mental health coaching. Because tonight should just really inspire you to say, I really want to get out of this stonewalling. I want to stop this emotional roadblock that I cause in my relationships. So I want to steer you up to want to do something about it. So let's just start the introduction tonight and then we can finish it up for sure on tomorrow. So number 2, what we're talking about again tonight is psychologically, what defense mechanisms hurt my relationships? We finished with projection, and now we're going to talk about stonewalling. No relationship is without conflict. Come on and type it. I want you to write it in your journals. I want you to write it in your blue and white book. But I definitely want you to write it because I want it wired in your brain. There is no relationship without conflict. If you don't like conflict, don't get into relationships because that's normal part of human. It's not so much the conflict, it's us learning conflict resolution. That's what makes us stronger. There is no relationship without conflict. Even the healthiest relationships will have some friction from time to time. We have to teach our children that. Because when they see us in heated discussions in our marriages or in our partnerships or with our friends or our church relationships, and then they begin to pick up biases or not liking someone because you're having an issue with someone. And we have to teach them all relationships have conflict. Even healthy relationships will have some friction from time to time. While it's natural not to see eye to eye with someone, it's how you handle those disagreements that can determine whether it helps or harms your relationships. When you and your partner are faced with a conflict, do you calmly hash it out, or does one partner stonewall or give the silent treatment? This is a defense mechanism, an unhealthy coping mechanism that we want to get rid of and put a healthy adaptational process in place before next Tuesday. And then just keep working it after that. But let's find a better way to respond. We talked about it last night, and some of y'all said you want to start communicating. You want to feel safe communicating your wants and needs in a relationship. Most of us don't feel safe enough to do it. We don't think people would care. So we hold it back and we resort to stonewalling, emotional roadblocks. While it's natural not to see eye to eye with people, it's how you handle those disagreements that can determine whether it helps or harms your relationships. When you or your partner are faced with a conflict, do you calmly hash it out? Or does one partner stonewall or give the silent treatment? While stonewalling may seem like a harmless tactic to deal with, and a healthy way to deal with problems in your relationship, it can have disastrous effects and may even be a pathway to divorce. However, there is hope for both parties. That's what we like. We like to bring up hope, right? We dive into what stonewalling is, the signs to look out for, and how to break down this wall of what's dividing your relationship. So tomorrow we're going to pick up on this part. We're going to dive into what stonewalling is, the signs to look out for, and how to break down this wall that's dividing your relationships. And we're going to start out with, what does it mean to stonewall someone? I am done for tonight. If you have any comments, any questions, if you want to know about mental health coaching as opposed to therapy, it's all on my website, www.suzannemhoward.com. You can reach us by telephone at 860-222-9884. Please make sure that you, even at this point, take the time to register on our website so that we will have your information and we can let you know when we're coming on live. We can keep you up to date on February when we do Soul Detox as it pertains to relationships. I'm going to interview some couples that month, and we're going to keep things rolling all year long in your life. I'm even going to do something new church-wise. So if you want to hear about that, make sure you stick with us. Is tomorrow Friday? Stick with us tomorrow night. I'm going to actually share some vision that the Lord has given us for the Apostles' House. And I'd like to hear some feedback from y'all because you've been with me 25 days. So there's a level of trust that has been established here. And I trust your opinion. And I want to hear what you have to say about this thing that I want to discuss with you on tomorrow night. So be here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Please take the time to like and share. Share this in somebody's inbox that you think can be blessed by this and what they're going through, especially if they're known for emotional shutdowns. That's who we want to help on tomorrow. That is our goal. That is our aim, and we will not pray amiss. I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. Thank you again. God bless you, and good night.
Let it. Let it. Let